My entitled Karen HR manager decides to suspend me from work after only being late to clock in by 1 minute. So I decided to maliciously comply and get some petty revenge, resulting in abject chaos as well as the CEO needing to intervene just to make sure that a massive, expensive project doesn't go down the drain. And I've honestly never been happier to get revenge in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so to start things off, for the past 5 years, I've been working at this mid-sized tech company. It's been great, or at least it was, until 6 months ago when we got a new HR manager by the name of Susan. Susan is not her real name. Now, Susan is the kind of person who loves the rules a bit too much. She came in with this idea of revolutionizing the workplace, but all she did was implement a bunch of unnecessary and strict policies. The one that really got under everybody's skin was her new attendance policy. It stated that if anyone was even a minute late more than 3 times in a month, they'd face immediate suspension without pay. No excuses, no exceptions. This was crazy considering we're all seasoned professionals and we're definitely not school kids. But Susan was adamant and the policy was enforced to the letter. Now, I'm usually very punctual, but life happens, right? Well, just my luck. I ended up being late 3 times in 1 month. The first was because of a massive traffic jam. The second was due to a power outage that affected my alarm. And the third, well, I just overslept. Each time I was barely 5 minutes late, but Susan didn't care. So she slapped me with a suspension notice. I was fuming. But then I remembered something important, namely our employee handbook. I had read that thing cover to cover when I first started, and something about the suspension policy stood out to me. I dug up my copy and found the section I was looking for. The policy stated that suspended employees must leave company premises immediately and are not allowed to engage in any work-related activities during their suspension. And it's right about then that a plan started to form in my head. You see, at that time, I was in the middle of a critical point for a major client. It was a huge deal for the company, and I was the lead developer. Without me, the project would grind to a halt. So I decided to follow Susan's policy to the letter. The next day, I walked into Susan's office and handed her the suspension notice, along with a printed copy of the employee's handbook suspension policy. I then told her that as the company policy, I will be leaving the premises immediately, and I will not partake in any work-related activities during my suspension, and that includes the Johnson project. Now, when I said that, the color drained from her face. She said to me, "You can't just leave the Johnson project." But you know what? I just shrugged my shoulders and I said, "Company policy, Susan. I'm sure you wouldn't want to break the rules." I then gathered my things and I left the office. Fast forward and the fallout was immediate. The project team was in disarray without me and the client was getting antsy about the missed deadlines. The CEO himself called me 2 days into my suspension, begging me to come back. But I explained that I was merely following company policies as enforced by Susan. Well, fast forward, and to make a long story short, the CEO had to intervene. My suspension was lifted and I was back at work the next day. And do you want to know what the best part about this was? Susan's ridiculous policies were all reviewed and mostly scrapped. She is still with the company, but let's just say her enthusiasm for rulemaking has significantly diminished. Honestly, good for the original poster. That is such a funny way to get revenge. Like, here's the thing. If you're just a few minutes late to work, it is really not that big of a deal, especially as an adult. Like, things can happen out of your control, no matter how early in the morning you get up to go to work. So when the electricity goes off and it destroys your alarm, or if there's some kind of like traffic jam or some kind of like accident, like that's not your fault. You should not be penalized for that. So the fact that Susan was really gonna treat you so poorly and seriously suspend you for being just a few minutes late to work throughout the month, that is seriously going so overboard, it's not even fair. And I just love the fact that out of anybody there who could have been suspended, she decided to suspend the person who's leading the development for this big project. And I just love the fact that she's like, "Wait a second, no, you can't go." But it's like, if you're gonna follow the rules, then so am I. So hopefully this never happens again, because honestly, this Susan lady sounds absolutely obnoxious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My coworkers, family, and neighbors think that I'm some nefarious person, as I'm coming to her house just to try and pick her up for dinner. And honestly, with all things considered, as well as how intimidating all of them were surrounding me, I am seriously just glad that I got out unharmed. Here's what happened. So on Saturday night, I was supposed to go to dinner with some folks from work, including a girl who said she needed a ride. Her car isn't the most reliable, so I said that I would give her a lift. She's about 10 years younger than me, she's the shortest girl at the office, and she is very, very Hispanic. Hispanic. And of course, I say this not as a put down, but it's essential in the context of the story. I set off a few minutes early to the address I'd been given and wound up pulling up to a home with signs outside that said, "Smile, buddy, you're on camera." And when I saw those, I grinned. I liked the attitude that those signs displayed, and I just really hoped I was in the right place. So I texted the girl from work, and I told her that I was ready for her, and she said that she'll be right there. So I got out of my car, did a bit of a stretch, and then leaned against my car and started going through my phone. While I was waiting and minding my own business, I sensed that somebody was approaching. What gave it away was someone saying, "I think you came to the wrong neighborhood," with two other guys chuckling at the line as they approached. They looked to be about my age or maybe a bit younger, between their mid-20s and early 30s. I didn't see any tattoos, but they were all about the same size, and they had 3 to my 1. And those are not the kind of odds that you want to see. I started doing that thing people do when they're about to panic and they're trying to calm the situation down. So I was waving my hands up and down, and I was saying to them, "Hey man, I'm just doing my thing. I work with a girl that lives in this house, and she asked me to give her a ride." I turned to point at the house in question and was greeted with the sight of an older man holding a baseball bat, leaving the house and also approaching myself and my new friends. He was smacking his palm with the bat and chuckling in a menacing fashion as he came. While I was busy staring at the man with the baseball bat, all 3 of the other dudes started to invade my personal space. The older guy with the baseball bat comes up while still smacking his palm with a bat, and in a tone that promises violence is imminent, he said to me, "You should get in your car and go home before something bad happens." Now, at that moment, I was torn between just sticking around and doing my own thing, as I mentioned earlier, and also thinking, oh no, this could be really bad. But thankfully, my saving grace rapidly approached. A gray sedan was driving up the street, and upon seeing me surrounded by other people, absolutely floored it and squealed into the driveway of the house. Out of the car flew the girl I was supposed to give a ride to, and she was angry. She immediately starts speaking Spanish rapidly and in a furious tone. I swear, her temper added a good foot in height, while she read all 4 of the dudes who got in my face the riot act. She actually started shaking a finger under the noses of the first bunch of dudes, who all made sorry noises in Spanish and slunk off towards wherever they came from with their metaphorical tails between their legs. And then our hero turns on the man with the bat, who has since hidden the bat behind his back like that's gonna save him. While all this is happening, the other occupant of the car has gotten out. It's our hero's grandmother, and she's walking her way down the driveway, completely bypassing the girl from work and the man with the bat to come up right to me and start to talk to me. She says to me, "Oh, you're the nice man who fixes my granddaughter's computer when she cries about it. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you very much for driving her to dinner. Please try and make sure she doesn't get into any trouble." I said, "You're very welcome," and then she said, "You know, I don't think my granddaughter needs much looking after, nor do I think that I want to be the one to tell her that she can't do something that she wants. That seems unsafe." I finished in a musing tone, while the man with the bat, who was indeed my coworker's father, continues to get scolded. Then the sweet old lady laughs at something that I said, and then her tone shifts, with her barking something in Spanish, in a tone reserved for little boys who have gotten a case of the clevers. And then she points at me and my coworker, and then growls something else. Now, I have absolutely no idea what was said, but the Batman is now looking at the ground. He walks over and takes the nice woman's elbow and leads her up the stairs and into the house. Now, I'm just stood there trying to figure out what in the world just happened to me. And I think the slackjaw gave it away, as my coworker says to me, "My dad thought you were my boyfriend and called some neighbors. I'm really sorry. Are you ready to go?" And honestly, with all things considered, that truly was one of the scariest moments of my life. Man, I don't know what I would have done in that situation. Here you are trying to pick up a coworker, and suddenly it's a 4-on-1 fight, and one of them is sporting a baseball bat. I'm pretty sure if I was in the original poster's shoes, I probably would have just gotten in my car and left and let my coworker pretty much sort it out from there. But good for you for somewhat standing your ground, as well as getting out of that situation unharmed, because honestly, that whole scenario sounds incredibly scary. My girlfriend of 2 years suddenly took everything and left me without saying a thing, and at this point, I am still blown away and I seriously don't know what to do. So the title pretty much says it all. 5 days ago, I tried to call her a few times throughout the day while I was at my tattoo shop just to check on her. We both do it daily and we chat, but she didn't answer and didn't call back. And later on, it went straight to busy. I eventually got worried if she's okay, but checked her Instagram and then other messaging apps that she has, and it's right then that I understood I was blocked on everything. She didn't block my business number, but eventually she blocked that one as well after I tried on that number too. I came home to see that along with her personal belongings, my cat, my laptop and iPad, as well well as my drawing tablet and tattoo machines were all gone. Also, her favorite cologne of mine and her favorite leather jacket of mine. Everything was completely missing. All of it gone with no notes. And I have nothing to understand any of this. Recently, she's been asking me for more money here and there, and I gave some to her the 2 times that she asked for it, and that was so she could buy a new iPhone and some other little things. I don't care about the money. I make enough to rebuy the things, but I feel awful and broken. I also miss her, and I literally don't know anything. I think I should be angry or hate her or something like that, but she was the best before leaving suddenly. She's beautiful, she's very introverted, she wants to be back at home all the time, but talks a lot to me and our friends, and she has had a history of depression. She hasn't looked depressed since the first couple of weeks of us dating, and yes, she gets sad moods every now and then, just like anybody else, but I've tried to be there for her. Her therapist kept saying that she's doing great for a long time, and I don't believe that she was struggling with depression. I don't know where she is, we didn't fight, we never did, and whatever way I try to reach out to her, she blocks it. All her friends are my best friends or their partners, and all of whom she has also blocked. Her only friend I knew and had the contacts for lives in another city now, and told me that it's not her business, but also told me that she answered her call too, and that she's very sorry. I just don't understand what happened. We painted together, we watched great movies together, we worked out, we talked and laughed, we had a good life. We would even go shopping and have date nights and parties. I absolutely insanely love her, and she does too. Well, I thought she did at least, and I've had enough relationships to know that she did. Not long ago, when I had visited my old man, she FaceTimed me to talk in my earbuds through the night and just to hear me breathe. It's probably cringe to you, and it would be to me, but that's just how close we are. So I really don't know what happened. She had asked me to get a very specific ring with a very specific jewel a year into our relationship, and we talked about it a lot, including our future. She was so excited that I cared to have the ring made, and it wasn't a super expensive ring to sell. She asked for one made of a certain wood. From her family, I've only met her sister. Everyone else who's close family to her is abroad. Her sister tells me weird things, like asking me why I left her and what I've done, as well as asking me where she is. She eventually stopped messaging me after I stopped replying time and time again that I'm just as confused. I'm at the point right now where I don't know what to do. I can barely eat anything when I get home, and I feel sad a lot, like my heart is about to explode in my chest, and I find it hard to breathe. I didn't tell this to my friends either. I just told them that we broke up when they asked why she's blocked all contact. Should I just forget about all of this without knowing what happened? What should I do? This is a very suspicious situation, and honestly, I would probably go to the police. Like, she ran off with your cat as well as your belongings and just cut town and blocked you everywhere. And now nobody knows where she's at or anything along those lines? Like, that sounds really sketchy. Also, your girlfriend stole your cat, which, by the way, the original poster has had that longer than he's known his girlfriend. So for her to just take that as she's walking out the door is just really weird and super obnoxious. But also, more to the point, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this. Like, honestly, this is crazy. Your girlfriend who loved you and had a good relationship with you just gets up and leaves without any kind of warning? Like, seriously, what is going on? That is super unfair to you, and honestly, I hope this all works out in your favor. My entitled mom is fine with my brother moving to Italy, but doesn't want me to move to South Korea for some reason. And at this point, I feel completely blindsided, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so to start things out, my fiance and I have considered moving to South Korea. Personally, I don't have anything keeping me to where I live. I have lived the same boring life in my depressing small town, and I am craving something so different. My fiance doesn't care where we live, as he doesn't have a strong preference. With our idea of moving to South Korea, my mom has had numerous meltdowns and manipulated me into telling my fiance to stay in the US. She has even heavily suggested he applies to grad school so that he can have a better future in the United States, and even had him considering to switch majors because she didn't think that he would have a bright future with the major that he was studying. My fiance also couldn't work due to being on a student visa. He could have worked easily in his home country, and my mom made it such a big deal that he couldn't work at the time. We have even thought about living in South Korea for a little bit of time, for a few months or a few years, and I really want our future baby to spend time in South Korea. We are now thinking about the first few years of our baby's life to be in South Korea, and then when the baby reaches the age of 5, we will bring it back to the United States and have it start school here. My mom has further made that an issue and told me that I can't keep her grandchildren away from her. I'm honestly sure that she would try to bring me to court all over this and say that I'm denying her rights as a grandparent. But for this, I'm going. I am not going to give up on this dream of ours, and our baby will live sometime in South Korea. Last night, my mom's friend was over for dinner, and my mom revealed to us that my brother is thinking about buying a house in Italy and might be moving there. Now, I was completely shocked, and I said out loud, "Are you kidding me? I can't move to South Korea, but my brother can move to Italy?" My mom's friend chimed in and said, "Well, it's safer in Italy than South Korea, all due to North Korea's issues." I said to my mom's friend in a sarcastic tone, "Trust me, it's very safe in South Korea, but thanks for your concern." Well, my mom just sat there in happiness while continuing to talk about her excitement of my brother buying a house in Italy and maybe moving there eventually. So I'm Italian American, and my mom is very prideful of her Italian culture. When it comes to South Korea, my mom believes it's unsafe due to North Korea, and she ignores anything I tell her about how safe it is within the country and that a lot of Koreans don't see North Korea as a threat. My mom is also scared that if I move there, then I will never come back to see her ever again. And yet, my brother can move to Italy. I'm truly disappointed and very sad. I had to give up my life in South Korea because of my mom's manipulation and emotional breakdowns. And my fiance made such a big compromise just for my brother to get praise for buying a house in Italy. So am I wrong for feeling completely blindsided? What should I do? Honestly, the way your mom is acting is super toxic. She is clearly showing favoritism towards your brother and just making up ridiculous excuses as to why you can't move to South Korea. But I think you can hold on to the hope that eventually, one day, you and your partner can have your own life, and your mom will hopefully not play a role in derailing it in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not allowing my mother-in-law to come over to my house unannounced anymore, all because she has constantly overstepped my boundaries and caused a lot of problems for me and my newborn son? Here's what happened. So I've been with my husband for 3.5 years and married for just over 1. This past November, we had our first child. My husband is an only child, and his father was never in the picture, and him and his mom have never really been close. Now, for a little bit of backstory, we are both at odds with my mother-in-law, and it all started less than 24 hours after I had my son. My husband and I both told my mother-in-law and my mother that we did not want our son's birth turned into a photo opportunity. People taking pictures of me have always made me feel uncomfortable, and my son had some complications immediately after he was born, so he was rushed to an ICU. I wasn't able to see him for roughly 9 hours, and once I was allowed to go see him in the ICU, my husband went with me as this was the first time I was officially meeting my newborn son. The next thing I know is that I look up and see my mother-in-law using this opportunity as a photo op. And when I saw this, I was fuming. These were not the first pictures I wanted of my son or of my husband and I with our son. The next morning, my mother-in-law decided she wanted to come back and see our son, who is now safe and in our room. Now, I am running on maybe 2 hours of sleep, but still said I was okay for her to come along. Once she was there, I didn't really interact with her. I was just trying to rest up. And after she left, she ended up calling my husband. And this is when he decided to call her out on the photo op and how she completely violated a boundary that we clearly set. And you know what? Her response absolutely floored me. She began yelling at my husband, saying that I hate her and that I don't like her and I never have, and that I am so hateful towards her. She said her reasoning for taking the pictures was because she thought that we would want to remember that moment, and in her mind, it was a big deal, and she didn't see the point of getting upset. Once all this happened, I decided I needed to distance myself from her and just focus on my new family. And you know what? My husband agreed with doing this as well. Fast forward to about a week and a half ago, and my husband and son had been sick for over a week. I was out doing errands and getting groceries, and my mother-in-law asked me multiple times if I wanted anything from Sam's Club. Now, I would constantly tell her, no, but thank you. But she was doing the same thing to my husband, and he would also respond by, no, we're good, but thank you. Well, I returned home and my son was screaming. He had not slept all day, and we decided to try for a nap. My husband finally falls asleep, and I finally get my son to fall asleep as well. Maybe about 10 minutes later, there's a knock on my door. My dog goes flying and barking her head off, waking up my son. I answer the door and I say, why are you here? And my mother-in-law said that she wanted to bring me a rotisserie chicken, a trash can, and laundry detergent. I told her we already said we didn't want anything, and to not show up at our house unannounced, and that the next time she tries to give us any random stuff, I will immediately return it to her, as we don't want anything from her. Well, as you can imagine, imagine? She got angry and said that she will never come over or speak to us ever again. Then she slammed the door and walked off. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Yeah, your mother-in-law is absolutely being crazy in this situation. She's coming over unannounced, and she's clearly crossing boundaries that you very clearly set up. Like, it really shouldn't be that hard to listen to what's being said and stop trying to insert herself into the situation, all under this lie that she's helping in some kind of way. Like, I totally get it. Maybe she's excited about being a grandmother or something like that, or she wants to be involved and help out, but you know what? From the sounds of it, she has only been a hindrance. She's not respecting the fact that they are parents now, and they get to call the shots in what happens in their marriage. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your mother-in-law's acting weird, and honestly, I don't blame you for acting the way that you did. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.